Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time, and huge congrats on this beautiful, incredibly powerful, moving, but also funny film. Maybe you can just give us a brief intro, though, to people who haven't seen Lollipop yet. What can they expect when they come to watch it?
Oh, wow. I guess raw truth and joy and laughter and it's about a woman coming out of prison and trying to get her children back. And it's Molly is played by the incredible Posy Sterling, and you're right on the journey with her. And then she reunites with an old school friend played by Idil Ahmed, who plays Amina, and it's such a joy to see them on screen, and it's really about what happens when we allow ourselves to be seen and be supported in community, and and they take destiny in their own hands in quite an unexpected way, I think.
You know, you've had quite a sort of non-conventional route into filmmaking, almost sort of happened incidentally. So maybe you can talk us through that journey a little bit, you know, how you sort of first made a documentary, and then at which moment did it sort of occur to you, actually, I could make a fictional feature film too?
Yeah, so I ended up getting into the film industry because in 2013 I was made homeless with my family. I'd never thought about filmmaking before, but I was interested in kind of documentary as a tool for creating empathy. I think I just used to watch things and be like, wow, you can really make people feel something. And when we were moving into the hostel, I guess it's a very powerless situation, and I felt I'm such an action person that the idea of moving into a hostel and kind of just sitting and waiting just didn't resonate. So I ended up filmed every day for a year in the hostel, and then once we got rehoused, turned it into a feature documentary, which I self-distributed in cinemas called Halfway. And then through that, I got BAFTA Breakthrough, and I ended up being introduced to Lollipop's producers, Olivier and Cecilia, and they said to me, have I ever thought about writing something, which I hadn't. Again, I just thought, oh, documentary's quite nice. And then I was like, maybe documentaries. And then they asked this. And I had known about this catch-22 that women were facing, and could really connect with that powerlessness and the feeling in your body of of that kind of lioness spirit. And I felt like if I could write, then I could write a lot of joy and a lot of laughter and a lot of humour into it. And so I guess I didn't go to film school. I didn't even know how to write a film. And I ended up, when they asked me, I started like Googling like how to write a film, and I'm a very feeling person. So the idea of trying to write from like structure, and I think storytelling is such a human, innate, ancient part of our soul, and we don't have to go to film school or come from a certain place in society to be able to write, you know. And I just lent into that. I know people, I know emotions, and I wrote from my heart, and was kind of supported by Olivier and Cecilia, and then BFI and BBC came on through development to chisel it down. And then I ended up working also with a lot of lived experience advisors who because I come from documentary and like to do lots and lots of research, and authenticity is so important, that I ended up speaking to lots of lived experience advisors, and they kind of informed the script. So like all the way the system works, and making sure it's like really truthful, because even though it's from Molly's experience, I didn't want there to be any blame. I feel like we can, in society and media, we get stuck in narratives of like good, bad, this polarity of goodies and baddies, who's the victim, who's the perpetrator. And I think that often people go into these jobs in the system not necessarily to cause harm, but because they want to do better, or because they care, and then they kind of get affected by this red tape. And so every woman within the film is kind of a mirror of each other, and really that's because I feel that you're like one thing a person says to you in school that's good or bad, or one access to university, or, you know, all of these different things which could make you be the judge or the one going to prison. And so I felt like I wanted to show all of that.
And making that transition, I guess, from documentary to a fictional narrative. And what do you think that sort of allows you to do creatively? Because I guess, as you said, you did all that research and spoke to all those women, but Molly isn't one person. Maybe she's like a composite, or you're pulling from different places of your own lived experiences and the women that you've met. So what was that transition like, and what do you think it allowed you to do differently than you would have done with a documentary?
Ooh, I feel like, I guess from making Halfway, what I really understood was that I took my pain and I turned it into something that was powerful. Like, it made us feel more power than we had. It also became medicine for other people. And so I really experienced firsthand that power of filmmaking and alchemical, that you can take something painful and turn it into something beautiful. And that is now like the motivation for me working. And for Lollipop, I felt like all of these women, even though it's about this present moment, this is historical. Like, women throughout time have had their children removed from them in all different contexts. And that separation between mother and child, that like the impact of that disconnection is deeply felt. And I think we can all resonate with it, whether it's happened or not. And so this film is like an ode to that in many ways. And so all of these women that I was speaking to, it kind of, even though Molly's fictionalized, it is the collective experience of what it means to be a woman. And it always brings emotion when I talk about it, because I feel like, one of the things that really shocked me was that when women were going through this and care proceedings, that they were told that they shouldn't react. So we had an amazing lived experience advisor called Amelia Rose, and I was kind of speaking to her throughout writing, and particularly kind of, just having these really deep conversations about how it felt, like really, really in the body. And she said, like, sometimes you'd go to meetings and you couldn't necessarily respond because it would be, it may affect your case because of how emotionally reactive you are, and then what that means in the wider context. And I felt like there's this history around women in all different places, but that we can be too much, too emotional, too bad, too wrong. We're not enough, we're too sexy, we're too wild, like all of this. There's too much rage, and therefore we only are able to show one aspect of ourselves. And I think that also translates to film. Like, when I see representations of women, they're not always like fully rounded. And Molly, for me, she shows the depths of grief, the highest heights of joy. She shows like ferocious rage. She is a full woman. And when women see it, and men, but I think it's this reflection or this deep seeing that happens on screen that also happens between Molly and Amina in their friendship. I think that's deeply healing and transformational.
Yeah, and I think there was so much, I guess, for any audience to connect with, but, being a millennial woman, that I really, really resonated with me. And exactly as you said, it's almost all these things are happening to her that are completely abnormal, and she's supposed to act normally. And I think a pivotal scene is that one in the council housing office, where she breaks down, and she's not supposed to be showing that guttural reaction, but of course it's so human. So was that a really important scene, but maybe one of the hardest to film too? Amelia
Rose, who was one of the lived experience advisors, she was speaking to Posy before that scene and was like giving voice notes, like very, very like generous, but also very raw reflections of what was happening to her when she was having her children removed, which she did get them back in the end. But that was so helpful, but also deep and moving and connecting for Posy to work off for that scene. But it was also, incredibly emotional and a lot to hold, because on that day, I particularly also really felt a lot. I was like feeling the emotion of it. And so I called everyone together, cast and crew, and just said, this is a big day. We're going to go slow. I might need some cry breaks. Like, everyone, we're in this together. We did every day I would do a grounding kind of somatic meditation in the morning and evening to create a holding. It's like a trauma-informed way of working. And the whole point, or my intention the whole time, was how can we create absolute to the best of our abilities, safe spaces so that these moments of vulnerability can be held, and that we honor the impact of all of that to cast and crew. You know, like, to work trauma informed means to acknowledge that you don't come to work like a work robot, and you might be dealing with some really, you know, intense storylines, and how can we make sure we don't take that home, and how can we just be mindful of how we're working together when we go home, and that we are full people, that this may resonate with different aspects of our own story, but that we can have a safe space where we can talk about it vulnerably, but also with like accountability and kindness. And yeah, it was amazing to see how all the cast and crew pulled through in that, but like throughout the whole process really, and just felt everything deeply. And then like supporting artists on that day came forward and said, you know, that some of them had experienced stuff like this. So yeah, it was magical. The whole thing was magical.
But then I love the fact that, you know, despite not shying away from those really tough, raw moments, there's so many other moments in the film that are full of joy and laughter and humour. And so it doesn't fall into that trap of perhaps, you know, sometimes these working class dramas everything is just so bleak. And actually that's
so
not how life is at all. So was it really important to you to include all that? You know, they're dancing around the living room to Garage, and, you know, playing silly games in the supermarket and things like that.
Yeah, I guess through my own healing journey, what I have come to understand is like the more I allow myself to feel, or the more connected I am to my feelings, and allow myself to feel pain, or to allow myself to cry, or to have those moments, like the deeper I can allow myself to feel those moments, the higher I can feel joy, and the more elated, you know, it's like it turns the body on. It's like a switch, and suddenly you can feel those moments of joy and laughter and beauty in everyday life. And those really are the moments. I think sometimes when you're living, I guess it's the difference between outside in or inside out, but you could look at someone's life and be like, oh, maybe there's like no joy there, but actually, you know, there's always joy. There's always ways to find joy. And so not only is it more of a reflection of real life, but it's also an inspiration to how to find those pockets of joy, just like Molly and Amina do. And yeah, and I always spoke about the joyometer as well, like when we were casting and going into the process, is like to be able to find women that could hold joy even amongst hardship. And that's true sisterhood. And that's, you know, that's what, when I was doing research and also speaking to women that have lived experience of the prison system, and also have made a feature documentary, Holloway, with that I co-directed, like all of the incredible women within that always speak about joy and sisterhood, and that is what gets you through it. So yeah, it was really important to have that.